Hello, and welcome to the Book Binge, and welcome more specifically to another book haul episode of the Book Binge, where I find out that if I thought that my Q1 2024 book haul was big, the Q2 2024 book haul has somehow got bigger. Somehow my limits were not reached last time around. Unfortunately, I didn't have the schedule planned out to accommodate for monthly book hauls, because if there was any point in time in which I could have actually done the monthly book hauls and have it work out, it should have been this time around, because there's way too many books on this list. Unfortunately for the Q3, I also won't be able to do the same thing, although I think I should be able to keep my book buying habits a little bit down. Either way, an attempt will certainly be made. A handful of the items on this list that I'll go through are physical that I have on my desk here, but the vast majority of these are ebook, with a not insignificant amount of audiobook acquisitions as well. So if you're hoping for a huge pile of physical books, well, you kind of get that a little bit to a degree, but not quite like, before this year, before I got a Kindle. Vast majority of my acquisitions, like I said, were ebooks. And with that being said, a few of these items that I am going to be showing off in this haul were technically purchased in July, even though this book haul should only encompass April, May, and June. The reason I've done that is because there's just so many items on this list, it kind of got confusing to actually differentiate which ones were and weren't bought before the month actually happened. So I'm just including it all in this book haul, and then the next book haul will take all the stuff bought, after this haul. Either way, yeah, I think that's enough pointless rambling at the beginning of this video. I think it'll all work out. I'm going to stop wasting any more time than I need to, though, and actually get on with the haul, because it is definitely a big one. The main other thing that I do want to give a shout out to is thank you to a friend of mine, Doom, for gifting me that amazing Volca poster, the cover for Ashes of Man by Christopher Rocchio. They're now in the background of the video. That is super generous of him. He did not have to do that. He did it out of nowhere just because he could, and I really appreciate it. It is cool to have something that nice for the background of the video, though. So that's actually where one of the things that inspired this rearrangement of the camera and everything was so I could be able to show that off in the background and actually be able to show it, because with the old view, there wouldn't have been enough space to be able to do that. So thank you again to Doom for that. Let's move on to the physical items actually, acquired through the second quarter of 2024. Now, the first set of physical items here is a handful of Cormac McCarthy books, basically completing my collection of what I have read or plan to read by the author. Now, first off is Sutri, the audiobook, the book of McCarthy's that I'm currently working through with the audio, doing an immersive sort of thing with it. I'm not very far into it, but it kind of exists. It is by far the thickest of McCarthy's books, and also has more words per page than his books tend to normally have, so that's disconcerting as far as the reading process goes. I also picked up the Sunset Limited. This paperback copy I actually purchased after I listened to the audiobook version of it. Just because I listened to it, I was like, okay, well, might as well pick up the physical copy as well. And then, as of the time that I'm actually recording this and that this video releases, The Passenger and Stella Maris I have actually read now, whereas when I picked them up, I obviously had not read them quite yet. These two are fantastic. If there's anything of McCarthy's that I can say I love, these are those two books for sure. That kind of gives you a teaser for some of the future videos coming on this channel, but those were some of my collections. While I was on vacation in the beginning, the end of May and the beginning of June, I went to a Barnes & Noble, and these next two items on the haul were acquisitions from that little trip. I decided to pick up the Penguin Deluxe version of The Art of War by Sun Tzu. Morbid curiosity about this book, just because everybody knows about it, everybody's heard about it, everybody knows the impact of The Art of War. So I figure, hey, why not actually pick up a copy of that matches a lot of my other classic editions. The other acquisition from Barnes & Noble was Martin Rady's The Middle Kingdoms, A New History of Central Europe, which I kind of picked up on a whim because I liked the cover of it, and I was like, history is kind of cool. I might want to be able to use this to be able to reference for certain world building ideas that I have for one of my next series that I'm going to be outlining So that's, a fun book. I plan to actually start reading this relatively soon just so that I can start getting an idea of certain stuff in it. I know it's a pretty consolidated history, as, one book can only cover so much in the history of an entire region of the world, but it does seem interesting nonetheless. Next up is an acquisition from July, but another one that I'm very excited to have, and one that I'm also reading right now, The Failures by Benjamin Lyer, a recent release, one that came out on July 2nd of this year, I believe. You'll see that my bookmark is in there. I'm a few chapters into it. I'll be reading a couple more chapters while this video renders. So far, the world building and everything is quite good. I'm enjoying my time with the book so far, and the cover is pretty neat. I like the simplicity of that cover and how vague it is in certain respects. So, there's that. And then another acquisition since, oh man, it was a little over a year ago at this point. I think it was about, I think it was my birthday of 2022. One of my friends gifted me 12 Rules for Life, the hardcover version of it by Jordan B. Peterson. I decided to finally pick up the hardcover for Beyond Order. I previously had some paperback editions of those two books before that I didn't ever actually use, that I didn't plan on reading from because they just weren't good quality at all. I was like, I'm going to repick these up in hardcover at some point and actually read from those. So that's what I decided to do. Finally completed that little set. Next up is a series of Star Wars collections that I'm going to be showing off here. First off, I did pick up a binding of the original Star Wars trilogy, so that would be, A New Hope, The Empire Strikes Back, and Return of the Jedi, all in this one binding. Very different to the one binding edition of the prequels that I have. Next up was the New Jedi Order by, a whole variety of authors. I've kind of gone on a little bit of a spree and going to be continuing to collect stuff over the next couple years. Going to be slowly showing off all these covers while I talk, of collecting a bunch of different Star Wars books because I'm suddenly in the mood for Star Wars as of recently, which we'll talk about a little bit later in this video, in fact. And Star Wars is kind of like a religion for me, just as a lot of people say. I grew up on it, and I specifically grew up on the prequels, so I do have a deep love for Star Wars and have never actually read any of the EU stuff, even though I've always wanted to. And I figured, hey, why not actually start picking up some of the material? I really have no reason not to. I've always been interested in trying it. So that is basically what this is. I decided to pick up New Jedi Order first. That is what we're going with. Still have several books to show off on the screen of the series, and I don't know how much more to ramble about it. That's one of the struggles of having a series that is 19 books long, because the New Jedi Order is absolutely massive for seemingly no reason. There's Vader, Destiny's Way. Just a few more books here, don't worry, I'm almost done showing off some of these covers. Here's a Horus Heretic trilogy. There's several really cool covers within this collection. There's a few pretty odd and goofy ones. I find the quality of most of these mass markets to be surprisingly good. Pretty happy with it overall. That one. And then the final book of the New Jedi Order there, The Unifying Force. So there's all 19 of those books shown off just now. Sorry that took so long, even though I'm going to be taking a little bit more time to show off Legacy of the Force. But thankfully, this one's only 9 books. Another series there at the end, somewhere long after the events of the original trilogy. So, one of these days I'll go through and I'll start actually reading a bunch of Star Wars material. So for now, I'm just starting off that collection. These Legacy of the Force books have pretty great covers, honestly. I really, really like the vibe of them overall. Bruno, just 3 more of these. Don't worry, I'm almost done here. Like I said, very great covers overall. I'm pretty happy with them, and I'm also pretty happy with the quality of the mass markets, even though I tend to not be a fan of mass market paperbacks compared to, say, trades, for example. But yeah, that is basically the end of the physical collection for this quarter. So, that's always exciting. Next, we're going to switch over to the desktop screen here, and I'm going to show you a lot of ebook items. So this is going to take quite a while unless I blaze through everything. I don't want to, blaze through everything too quickly. I want to let you be able to see all the covers of everything, but I will have to speed this up just a little bit. First off, all 4 books in this Adrian Tchaikovsky collection I did collect. Basically everything that I bought over the last 3 months has been because of sales. There's been a few things that I've just bought here and there because I could, but most everything collected was with Kindle sales, just mind you. So I'm not going to say I got it for cheap. That's why I picked it up with everything, because that's the story with most everything. But that is the story with Shards of Earth and House of Open Wounds. One of these is a book 1 in a series. One of these is book 2 in a series. So they're just sales. I'm going to continue collecting those if they ever go on sale, and I might just buy them outright at some point in the future. Then there's also this duology, The Expert Systems Brother and The Expert Systems Champion. No idea what those are about, but they were on sale and the covers look pretty neat. And, I know a lot of people who really like Tchaikovsky, so I had no reason to complain about that. And had no reason to not be interested. I also picked up a few more David Foster Wallace books after starting reading Infinite Jest. So that was like The Pale King, the unfinished novel that he was working on when he died, and then a couple of essay collections, being a supposedly fun thing I'll never do again, and other essays, and then of course Consider the Lobster and other essays. So, I will definitely be reading a little bit more Wallace. There's a lot of fun that I've been having with Infinite Jest, and I'm interested in reading some of his nonfiction. So some of those essays I'm really interested in giving a shot. And since it was all on sales, I figure it's worth it. Even The Pale King, which I normally wouldn't be interested in trying to read because it's unfinished, but I might give it a shot one of these days. Next up, let's jump over to Guy Gavriel Kay, an author who I have every reason to believe will work perfectly for me, an author who I'll probably very much love. So I've started to collect a few of these books on sale. The first 2 books, and I believe his first trilogy, the Fionavar Tapestry. I don't know if that's how that's pronounced. I probably butchered that, but that being the Summer Tree and the Wandering Fire, those first 2 books in there. I also bought Sailing to Sarantium, which that may be mispronounced as well, and Tigana, which also may be mispronounced. I know Sailing to Sarantium has a sequel. I'm keeping an eye on that to see if that goes on sale, but like I said, I genuinely have no reason to believe that I will not absolutely click with K, so I'm very interested to try some of his stuff, perhaps a little bit sooner than later. Next up, we have some Janny Wirtz books that I collected, and I know that I have one of these books in the collection, even though it's not part of the series that the collection is titled after. It's fine. I put it here for easy reference for the video. To Ride Hell's Chasm, which is a standalone, that'll probably be the first thing that I read by Wirtz, but otherwise I have the first 9 books of Wars of Light and Shadow, and I know none of them are in their proper order. That's because of the metadata associated with them on Kindle that I am not going to bother editing or dealing with at the moment, so they're just in there somewhere. I like the covers, and they were pretty cheap. These ones I didn't actually buy on sale. I just bought them outright because they're pretty cheap standard on Kindle. So the last 2 books I still have to collect. I'm hoping those go on sale at some point, but I'll probably just buy them outright here relatively shortly, just so I have the whole collection at once. Next up, we have a pretty similar situation there, except instead of Janny Wirtz, it is, oh man, if I could find the collection, that would be helpful. Oh, it's because I have it here. Robert McCammon books. So again, The Listener I picked up. That's a pretty recent release, actually, that was on sale. I found that surprising, but it sounded interesting, so I decided to pick it up. There's a few more McCammon books that have gone on sale over the last month that I didn't pick up for one reason or another, and I regret not picking up basically any of those. Like, most of those books I am actually interested in reading, so I don't know why I didn't grab them. But otherwise, the other 8 items of this list are nearly the entire Matthew Corbett series. It is only missing Queen of Bedlam. Funny enough, the Queen of Bedlam is the only book in the series that has not gone on sale at any point over the last several months while I've been trying to collect these books, and is also the most expensive one at $16. Funny that, maybe that's a coincidence, but maybe it's not. Next up, we have another author that I really don't know anything about. I've heard some interesting and or good and or mixed things about some of his books over time, but a few of the books, are in omnibuses that were on sale, and then Dahlgren was also on sale, so I have Dahlgren. I don't know if that's how that's pronounced. I have Return to Neverion, which is almost certainly mispronounced with those lettering and accents and stuff on those letters, but it is full 4-book series. I know nothing about it, but it was like $2. I was like, sure. And then this little collection of Babel 17, Nova, and Stars in My Pocket Like Grains of Sand. I don't necessarily know much about Delaney. I've only really heard of Dahlgren and Babel 17 before picking up these collections, but they were cheap and people were promoting them, so I was like, what the heck, let's just pick them up. I kind of went on a big sci-fi collection these last couple months, but especially this last month. You'll see a lot more of it a little bit later. Next up on this assorted little journey I'm taking you on is a few books that I picked up by Joe Hill. Heart-shaped box, which I think picked up in July, but then Nosferatu and the Fireman were all on sale at one point or another the last few months. Next up, we're going to go to Neil Stephenson. I already owned Snow Crash from him. I'm pretty sure I showed that off in the previous book haul video, but I picked up Cryptonomicon, Anathem, and Fall, or Dodge in Hell, whatever that's called. I know nothing about Stevenson overall either, but because of cheap sales, I was like, sure, why not? Let's pick some very thick books up that I might never get to. That's always fun. Next up is the Greek Mythos series. The Greek Myths Reimagined, I believe, is what this little series is called, by Stephen Fry. That being, Mythos, Heroes, and Troy. Troy I actually picked up just a couple days ago in July. That one went on sale, but the other two were on sale several weeks ago, so I have that whole trilogy, which is exciting. I love Greek mythology. I love mythology in general, but especially the Greek stuff I just have a particular passion for, so I'm excited to own those. Next up is just a couple books by Neil Gaiman. The only books by Gaiman that I'm really interested in trying, especially at this point, those being The Ocean at the End of the Lane and American Gods. Those are the two of his books that I'm interested in giving a shot for one reason or another, so those are the two that I picked up when I saw them on sale. Finally, the last assorted author pickup that I'm going to be showing off here will be, let's see, Ray Bradbury. So you have The October Country, which I know nothing about, but aside from certain people really enjoying it, The Halloween Tree, which I know a little bit about, and the fact that a lot of people like it. Something Wicked, This Way Comes, which of course is pretty iconic. That one I know plenty about, and I'm curious to give a shot. And then The Martian Chronicles, which is one of these sci-fi / short story type of things that I've had recommended to me a whole lot. Forgive the voice crack when you talk a lot without taking a sip of water. That sometimes happens, or at least if you're me anyway. Next up, we're going to be going on a little journey with a few omnibuses that I collected over the last few months. If I could find the collection, there we go. I got some of these for cheap because they're technically public domain stuff like the collection from Agatha Christie, that whole thing. I got the complete novels of Charles Dickens, and then the complete short stories of Jack London. So again, like I said, basically public domain stuff that I didn't technically need to pay for, but for ease of access, I figured why not, especially since some of these I don't ever plan on collecting physically, like Agatha Christie. I don't even know if I'm ever going to read this stuff, but the collection was $1. So, why not? Complete novels by Charles Dickens just kind of makes my life a little bit easier. I don't know if I want to collect all of those books physically. I might just do that, but I have this just in case I decide not to. I got the Dragon's Blade trilogy, which is a little omnibus by Michael R. Miller. I know this is fantasy, a little bit different than what you might include in a typical omnibus section like this. I'm going to take it out of this section here shortly. I just decided to have it here because it was a full trilogy in one. Then there was also Tales of the Malazan Empire, which is the Ian C. Elsamont spin-off series for Malazan here. These 6 books, that whole collection was not on sale when I bought it, but I did have several Kindle credits to be able to spend, and because that collection is so much cheaper than the books individually, I was just like, I'll just buy that all together at once because I have no reason not to. So that's what I did. And then this little interesting thing here by John Jakes, the North and South trilogy, which again I don't really know much of, but I know I have a few friends who collected some physical editions, some other people who had some decent things to say about it. I figured that the general premise of it, at least when I read it, when I picked it up, sounded interesting enough to pick up for $2. I was like, okay, I'll just pick that up because I can. Pretty similar story there. Let's jump up to more Dan Simmons, being the Hyperion Cantos, except I did not collect the whole Cantos. I've so far only collected Hyperion on sale and The Fall of Hyperion on sale. So the Hyperion duology, which I'm not sure how into Endymion I would be. I don't know how into Hyperion I will be. So I'll definitely, at some point, whenever I get to this duology, I'll read these two and then decide if I want to pick up Endymion after that, because I'm not confident enough in that whole series together to pick all 4 books up at the moment. Next up is going to be several collections of series that I purchased. So not like omnibuses, but full series that I purchased at one point or another. Let's see, there was Threadlight by Zach Argyle. You know, heard some pretty decent things about it. These covers are pretty neat as well, so I picked those up. You have another similar thing for Ash and Sand, neat covers. This trilogy by Richard Nell, neat covers. Plenty of good things I've heard about some of it, so decided to pick those up because I could. That's basically the story with a lot of these. Next up was a series that I'd never heard of at all, but like the second and third book I think were only like $2 each, and the first book went on sale for free at one point. I was like, okay, these covers are pretty generic, but they caught my eye, so I was like, why not? It was like less than $4 for these 3 books. I was like, sure, why not? Just give it a shot at one point in time. Had no reason not to do that, really, since I was interested in the covers. Next up was The Second Apocalypse by R. Scott Baker. I believe that's how it's pronounced. I always felt inclined to pronounce it Backer, but I guess it's Baker. Correct me if I'm wrong, please. But all 7 of these books, which at one point or another, like every week or two over the last 3 months, one of these would be on sale somewhere. So I was able to pick them up one at a time, and somehow got to have all 7 of them by the time this haul came out. So that was pretty interesting. Next up is, let's see, up here, Echo Saga. So again, I'm not sure if this series was actually on sale. I think some of them were on sale, but I decided to just pick them up because I could. All 9 books by Philip C. Quaintrail. You know, cool covers, cool premise. That's basically all I needed to pick them up, since this author, along with a couple others, just makes all of their ebooks pretty cheap in the first place anyway, so it wasn't too tough of an ask to go ahead and pick all those books up. Next up, we're going to be going into several like either standalone books or a couple more like fantasy-like options that I only got part of the series of. Let's see. The first one in here is going to be in this collection. It is Dreams of the Dying by an author name that is not English, that I'm not going to try to pronounce, Nicholas Lietzau. I said I wasn't going to try to pronounce it, but there you go. That was my butchering of that name, which I guess is the first book in a series where this first book is the only one that's released. But I heard good things about it from Philip Chase, so I was like, I picked it up on sale because why not? And the cover looks pretty cool as well. Next up is the Dark Star trilogy, which is made up of Black Leopard, Red Wolf, and a second book, which I haven't actually picked up yet. I could have swore I had picked it up at some point over the last couple of weeks, but I had not, so I only have the first book at the moment. And then one of the more surprising options of books that I decided to pick up, because they were all on sale relatively recently, the 3 books that are out of The Gentleman Bastards. So there is that. I don't know when I would get to those, probably not until there's more news on when they'll be finished, which I know I sound like an absolute jerk like everybody else when I say that, but I don't have it as an immediate priority at the moment, is basically the point. Jumping back to this random video page, you saw some other books in here. These are basically the next several items that I'm going to talk about. There was The Grapes of Wrath by John Steinbeck, which I basically only picked up because it was on sale. Otherwise, I'm not really interested in too much of Steinbeck's work, despite really liking East of Eden. This is one of the only other ones of his that I'm really interested in trying. So because it was cheap, I decided to pick it up on Kindle, because I don't think I care enough to buy it physically. So there's that in there. There is Pale Fire by Vladimir Nabokov, which I don't know why I decided to pick this up on sale on Kindle, because this is probably one that I'm going to want to read physically just because of the structure of it. If you don't know why, ask anybody who's read it, and they can explain to you exactly why. There's also another book that I did not get in this collection to talk about, so let me skip some of these for just a bit so that I can get to them. There's Shane by Jack Schaefer, which is one of the few westerns that I've heard of that I'm interested in trying. That one went on sale, so I was like, I'll just go ahead and pick that one up there. A novel called Pilgrim, which is a medieval horror by an author called Mitchell Luthi, which I hope that's how that's pronounced. I know absolutely nothing about it, but I think it was like $1, and it general premise sounded cool, so I was like, what the heck. pick it up. This is what Kindle sales do to a guy. I don't even read very much on my Kindle, and I'm still nickel and diming myself to death because of this kind of stuff. Then finally, we're going to move on to The Passage by Justin Cronin in here, which is a book that I'm interested in trying, but I know I've heard very mixed things. There's some people who really like it, some people who don't really like it because of some of the changes that Cronin decided to make part way through the book. So I don't really know much about it, but I am interested in giving it a shot. I'm not going to pick up the rest of this trilogy. I'll decide what I think after I read this first book, whenever that may be. Now let's jump back up in my list. I don't know why I had it organized that way. I thought I had it organized a little bit better, but let's jump into my miscellaneous sci-fi folder, because all 7 of these books I actually picked up over the last 3 months, I am now realizing. There's Replay by Mark Levy, which is a thriller. I believe I heard of this one because of Words and Time, so Jonathan talked about it in a couple videos a couple years ago, and the premise intrigued me, so when this one was on sale, I decided to pick it up for that reason. There's Pushing Ice here, which I don't know why I picked this one up. We'll discuss that just a little bit later in this video, but it was $1, so I picked that up when it was on sale. The Left Hand of Darkness by Ursula K. Le Guin, which besides Earthsea, which I have on the shelf back here, this is like the one of her novels that I'm most interested in giving a shot besides Earthsea, so that's why I picked that one up when it was on sale. Childhood's End by Arthur C. Clarke, which I wasn't sure I would be interested in picking up physically, so I decided to pick it up cheap on Kindle, because that's probably how I'll end up reading it. It is probably the main Clarke book that I'm interested in giving a shot. Next up was Roadside Picnic by Arkady and Boris Strugatsky, which is a story that I got put on my radar because of watching some reviews of Pacific Drive, a video game, particularly the one by SkillUp, when he talked about the way that game kind of reflected this book in certain ways, and I thought that sounded interesting. And after hearing about a couple other people who read it and liked it, I was like, I'll pick that up, especially since it was on sale. So that's how I decided to get that. And then one that comes highly recommended, The Sparrow by Mary Doria Russell. Sorry, Mary Doria Russell. Tongue twister, that one, for no reason at all, actually. Sun Eater fans really like The Sparrow for pretty similar reasons. Not necessarily because it's like the same thing specifically. Sorry, I just hit my mic a couple times. I don't know if that was audible. But this book apparently yields emotional anguish upon the reader in much the same way that some Sun Eater books have been known to do. So when this one went on sale, I was like, I'm going to pick that up to please and horrify some of my friends who have read it and are absolutely love it, but were emotionally destroyed by it. So if I decide I want to be emotionally destroyed by something, kind of like Sun Eater did for me, well, that'll probably be on the short list of options that I look into. Next up is Slaughterhouse-5 by Kurt Vonnegut, an author who I'm not sure how much I'll jive with, but I am interested in a couple of his books like Cat's Cradle and Slaughterhouse-5, of course. I know that Slaughterhouse-5 is generally considered to be one of the better starting points for him, or maybe that's just because it's maybe one of his most well-known books, so I picked this one up just to kind of test the waters with his work, basically. Next up, we're going to jump to a couple of short story and novella items. If I could find that folder, that would be pretty easy. There we go. I picked up Hellmouth by Giles Christian, or Giles Christian. I don't know which one of those is the proper pronunciation. I've heard it pronounced both ways a ton. So tell me which one is actually correct in the comments if you happen to know, which is a novella that I'm supremely interested in. I love medieval vibes. I also really like well-executed horror, so I'm pretty confident I'll enjoy this one. If nothing else, it's pretty low commitment since it is a novella. It is pretty short. The Sandman by E.T.A. Hoffman, which is a pretty iconic story, especially in the way that it interacts with European folklore, I believe German folklore more specifically. I have already read the book, and I'm just now realizing why the heck is that N so weird on that cover in there. That's kind of odd. Anyway, like I was saying, I have already read The Sandman, and I will have a Short Story Sundays episode on that book and the end of July, so that's what came of reading that. And then of course I also picked up Dreams of Sorrow, the next novella that Shauna Lawless produced for her trilogy, kind of the same as Dreams of Fire. I picked this one up as well because I saw that it had come out. The other item I think I have in here is, yep, The Blood That Burns, The Winter Snow, the short story that Ryan Cahill released in some sort of, uh, uh, whatever the term is, I can't think of the term for some reason, collection of stories from various different authors. This one was in there. He decided to sell it independently as well, so I picked it up because I have picked up all of the other stuff on Kindle. Now for a few more book one examples of series that I have picked up a book for but have not picked up the rest. Let's see if I can find them amidst the folders. If I could, it'd be easier if I could actually remember the series name. So Jade City I picked up on sale. I am interested in trying this, not enough to actually collect the books physically. Whatever, most of my friends don't like it, that's fine. I am still interested in giving it a shot. Minute of Steel is next. The Pariah, I picked that one up when that was on sale. None of the other books have gone on sale. For The Burning, I picked up The Rage of Dragons basically free a couple of months back because it was on sale for like $3 and I had like $4 of credit, so I got that. Fires of Vengeance was a pretty similar situation. This one didn't go on sale, but at $10, I had like $12 of credits to use. I had realized midway through this quarter, been like, wait a minute, I've been buying books a lot and I haven't used any points. Let's use those. So I decided to pick up The Fires of Vengeance. So Celine will be happy to hear about that, although she will be unhappy to hear that I still don't know when I'm going to start reading those books. As for the Library Trilogy, the second book in that trilogy went on sale, so I picked that one up, waiting for the first one to go on sale at some point. Pretty similar situation as The Age of Bronze by Miles Cameron. Storming Heaven is the second book in this trilogy. The third one's releasing pretty soon, I believe in August. The premise of these and the covers of them looked cool enough to me to pick up the second book on sale, so I'm looking at the other two to see if I can get them at some point. Another series that was recommended by Words in Time by Jonathan over on that channel is Jean Le Flambeur, which I'm absolutely certain I butchered the pronunciation of. I'm sorry. Books 2 and 3 went on sale at one point, The Causal Angel and The Fractal Prince. Still waiting for the first book to go on sale in that trilogy, but that one is one that I'm interested in trying if I want to bust my brain with sci-fi. Next up was something that I tricked myself into purchasing because I thought the books were on sale, but they weren't. Priest of Gallows and Priest of Crowns by Peter McLean, the third and fourth book in War for the Rose Throne. These books are like $5 on Kindle, so I thought that they were on sale compared to the first two because the first two are like $12 a piece. Turns out that that's just the price these two are all of the time, so I picked them up thinking they were on sale, and the first two haven't gone on sale, so I just have books 3 and 4 in the series now for the moment, and we'll see whenever I'm able to collect the others. And then the final item that I'm going to be showing here in this haul as for ebooks will be, if I could find it, there it is. The first 3 books in a series called The Witches of Scotland by Stephen Aitchison. I know nothing about the series, but it got put in my recommended on Amazon so many times over the last several months that when this was on sale, I was just like, let me just pick it up then. There's 3 more books in it that have a little bit more of a purple color scheme going on, and I don't know anything about this series, but I picked it up for cheap because it was in my recommended a lot. Figured, why not? So again, no idea when I'll read that, but that is the end of the ebook haul for the moment. Let me go ahead and switch back to full screen so I can go and find my way to my Kindle, or sorry, my Audible library. Anyway, this is the point where I talk about the audiobooks that I collected. There are going to be quite a few items in this part of the video as well, but several of these items are also going to be Audible Plus related, and those ones I'm going to specify, which we'll get to at the end of this section. First off, let's go ahead and start off by talking of the Alastair Reynolds books that I decided to pick up from the Audible Plus library. So House of Suns, which is the one that I'm most interested in trying. Pushing Ice is in there, which I collected the ebook for some reason. Century Rain, which I don't know anything about. Terminal World, which I don't know anything about. Slow Bullets, which I only know is like pretty short, 4 hours, compared to the other books being like 19 hours a piece. So I don't know what that's about either. I don't know what any of these are about, basically. Revelation Space, which is one of the only other of his books that I've heard of besides House of Suns, this series. The Prefect, which I guess is the first of another series, but like continues Revelation Space if the Audible tags are to be believed, but often the Audible tags aren't to be believed, so I don't know if that's true or not. And then Blue Remembered Earth from a series called Poseidon's Children. These are all the books of his that are in the Audible Plus catalog, so I decided to add them to my library because I could. That doesn't mean they'll stay in my library, because they may not stay in the Audible Plus catalog, but I collected them nonetheless. Next up was a huge Audible Plus haul, realizing that Peter F. Hamilton, nearly his entire bibliography, is in the Audible Plus catalog, so I added basically all of them into here in some I don't know if they're in any particular order in here. It seems like they might be, but if you were to scroll through and see all 19 books that are in this collection, you have the Night's Dawn trilogy with A Second Chance at Eden, which I believe is in the same universe. You have Misspent Youth, then the Commonwealth Saga, and the Void trilogy, and the Chronicle of the Fallers, which I believe all 4 of those are in the same universe as well. Well, not the same universe as the Night's Dawn trilogy, but those 4 are in a collected universe. There's the Salvation Sequence trilogy, the Arkship trilogy, but only the first 2 books in that, because the 3rd book in there isn't in Audible Plus yet. It's a new release, so that seems to make sense. And then a couple standalones in Fallen Dragon and Great North Road. I don't know a whole lot about Hamilton other than having a few friends or acquaintances that really enjoy his stuff, so I figure if I want some pretty thick sci-fi, I have an easy resource to go to do that if these books stay in the Audible Plus catalog. So that's all well and good. Speaking of more Audible Plus stuff, I decided to pick up a few more books that were in the Audible Plus catalog from Thomas Pynchon. No idea if/when I'll get to these. Against the Day I'll get to sometime because I have that physically. Mason and Dixon and Violent I don't know about for sure. But I did read Crying of Lot 49 earlier this year, in part because it had an audiobook in the Audible Plus catalog that I enjoyed. I enjoyed that book a lot more than I thought I would, so that was pretty neat. Another series from the Audible Plus catalog that I got was the Lotro trilogy by Gene Wolfe, which I didn't even know existed, but seemed like a cool concept, so I added it, even though I don't know when or if I will get to it. Otherwise, most of the rest of what is in this haul is not Audible Plus. There's one last item here, so let me talk about that real quick. I believe that is this one. That is not this one. That is this one. The Einstein Intersection by Samuel Delany. So another Delany book that I added. People told me to read this one because it's short. It might give me a good taste of what his style is like. But because it's part of that Audible Plus catalog, I decided to add it to my library because I could. Otherwise, of the books that I actually bought or used credits on, you have a bunch of Neil Stephenson books here, books that I bought on sale either because I had purchased the Kindle version on sale, because that's how Kindle and Audible links together as far as prices are concerned. So like Anathem, Cryptonomicon, and Fall or Dodge in Hell are books along those lines. Snow Crash I also added to my library because I'm pretty sure this one was part of Audible Plus. Maybe it wasn't. Maybe I just bought it on sale. I don't remember for certain. And then 70s. I don't remember which of these books I got over the last quarter. I'm pretty sure it was all of them. So I have all of them in the list here. Next up was a series that I decided to pick up because a couple friends and I decided to start doing them as a sort of read-along, buddy read type of thing. That is the main portion of the High Republic series by a few different authors, but part of the new Star Wars canon. So if there's any new Star Wars canon material that I'm interested in, it was the High Republic stuff. So that is some of the stuff that I started collecting, was these 5 books. So we're going to slowly work our way through those as we can. We've already done the first book in it. Going to be doing the second book maybe in August or September, depends on when I'm able to get to it. But that is what this little folder is for. Next up, I did also collect the last 2 books in the Sun Eater that have audiobooks that I hadn't collected before previously. So that is the Dregs of Empire and then Disquiet Gods are now in my collection, even though I don't know if I'll ever end up using them. They're there in my collection now because they can be. I also collected World of Wreckage, the 3rd book in Torth, which the first book in this series I did review and get an arc for several months ago. It was actually middle late of I think it might have been upwards of a year ago actually at this point, but I've been slowly collecting these books as they've been coming out on audiobook, just to be able to continue the series at one point, so World of Records is included in that. Next up are a couple miscellaneous books that I picked up, being Fever Dream by George R.R. Martin. Figured I'd pick this one up on audio. It's the only Martin book that I'm really interested in trying besides A Song of Ice and Fire. I picked up Swan Song by Robert McCammon because it was pretty cheap. For one, it was on sale. It's narrated by Stom Steck-Schulte, which he narrates several McCarthy books. I enjoy him as a narrator, so I decided to pick this up for that. Figure when I get to that, I'll maybe do it immersive reading. That might get me through it. And then Cold Springs by Rick Riordan, which I did add to my Audible Plus catalog, or add from it several months back, but because it came off of it and it was on sale, I decided to just buy it. So that was something that I decided to do. And then the next few books are either nonfiction or nonfiction adjacent, so those being The Revenant by Michael Punk, I think is how that name is pronounced, at least I'm assuming, which if you haven't seen The Revenant, which stars Leonardo DiCaprio, that movie is pretty cool, and I've always been really interested in the story. Obviously, there's going to be some liberties taken with the book, but I figured I would pick this up because it was pretty cheap and I'm interested in it. There's The Wager, A Tale of Shipwreck, Mutiny, and Murder, which I've heard very good things about from basically everybody, so I picked that up. And then I'm Glad My Mom Died by Janet McCurdy, which I also picked up for basically the same reason. Next up is Go Tell the Bees That I'm Gone, Outlander Book 9, which was on sale for like $5, so I decided to buy that just when all 8 of the other books decided to come off the Audible Plus catalog. Originally, the series was going to be on this list because all of the rest of the series got added to the catalog, and then like 2 weeks later, they all came off of it, including the first one, which has been on that catalog for like several years at this point. So that was cool to spend $5 and the rest of the series to disappear, so I'll probably buy the rest of the series at some point in time as I decide to get into the series, whenever that might be. Finally, the last item in this book haul, because this recording has been going way too long, the last item was getting the new release in The Wandering Inn, The Witch of Webs, so book 12 in that series for the audiobooks. Don't know when I'll be able to continue the series. I'm waiting for the rewrite of book 1 for that audiobook to come out so that I can listen to that and then continue with it. But I've been collecting all of them as they've been releasing nonetheless, just because I can. So that is the haul. I've been talking for way too long. My voice is pretty tired. It is very hot in this room because it is summertime. And I think I'm going to get out of your guys' face because, again, this is a pretty long video, pretty long haul. I'm hoping that the next one of these hauls isn't as long, and I think from that point on, after the next haul, the Q3 2024 book haul, I think it's going to be monthly book hauls from then on, depending on how many, ebooks and stuff I decide to purchase on sale all of the time. So that will constitute some changes on the channel that I'll have to figure out in the future. But if you have watched this video and you decided to stick through all that rambling and nonsense, I appreciate you. Thank you very much. If you're interested in checking out more videos on the channel, I have a stockpile of like 200 plus of them waiting and ready for you. Otherwise, next Tuesday actually will be a video titled Top 10 More Classics I Really Want to Read. The title is pretty self-explanatory. That'll be coming next Tuesday. Otherwise, if you've checked out this channel or seen this channel or noticed it because of my Wheel of Time diaries, I'll be continuing those next Thursday with my reading diaries for New Spring, the prequel for the series. So that is pretty exciting as well. But otherwise, like I said, I'm going to get out of your face. Thank you for watching. I'll be back in the next video.